I pushed open the community center door at exactly 7:02 p.m., the way I always do, slow, deliberate, refusing to scurry like some cornered animal. The room smelled like burnt coffee and cheap perfume, that particular stench of people who think they're better than you. 23 faces turned toward me, 23 mouths opened. Then the laughter hit me like a wave of hot sewage. Veronica Whitaker was already on her feet, one manicured hand planted on her hip, the other clutching a glass of white wine she wasn't supposed to have in here. She wore that smile, you know, the one. The smile that says she's won, and you've lost, and everyone in this room knows it. "Well, well," she sang out, voice dripping with poison honey. "Look what the cat dragged in." The neighborhood charity case finally showed up to beg. Her twin hyenas, Brenda and Susan, cackled on cue. Mark, Veronica's husband, snorted so hard wine sprayed from his nose. A couple of the newer residents joined in, that nervous laughter people do when they want to fit in with the bullies. The older ones, the ones who remembered when this neighborhood was decent, stared at the floor like cowards. I stood there in my 20-year-old cardigan and sensible shoes, cane gripped in one hand, manila folder in the other. 70 years old, 5'3" in orthopedic sneakers, gray hair pulled back in a bun. The perfect victim. I let them laugh. I even smiled a little, because the door behind me hadn't closed yet. It swung open again, slow, heavy, final as a coffin lid. The laughter died mid-cackle, choking off like someone had cut the power. In walked Jonathan Hale, 6'4", charcoal suit sharp enough to slice bone. Silver hair slicked back like a 1,940 seconds movie star who'd never lost a fight. He carried a leather briefcase that probably cost more than Veronica's leased SUV. His shoes made a sound like a judge's gavel with every step across that tile floor. Click, click, click. He didn't look at them. He looked at me, gave me the smallest nod, the kind of nod generals give each other before a battle. Then he turned to face the room. "Good evening," he said. His voice was low, calm, dangerous, the kind of calm that comes right before a guillotine drops. "My name is Jonathan Hale. As of 6:47 this evening, I am the duly elected president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association." Veronica's wine glass slipped from her fingers. Crash. Glass exploded across the tile. Red wine spread like blood. Jonathan opened his briefcase. Stacks of documents inside, neat as bricks. He laid the first one on the table in front of Veronica like he was dealing a royal flush. 62% of the voting interest in this association, he said, each word precise as a scalpel, now belongs to Evelyn Harper. He paused. "Mrs. Harper has appointed me president, vice president, treasurer, and if necessary, executioner." That last word hung in the air like smoke from a fired gun. I finally spoke. My voice came out soft, almost sweet. "Hello, neighbors. Some of you have been laughing at me for 4 years." I let my smile grow wider. Tonight, I thought I'd return the favor. This is the story they never saw coming. The story of how a 70-year-old widow with a cane and a Vanguard account bought an entire neighborhood out from under the people who tried to steal her home. If you've ever wanted to see bullies get exactly what they deserve, hit that subscribe button right now. You're not going to want to miss a single second of this. Let me take you back 4 years. To the day the devil moved in at 1427 Sycamore Lane. My husband Tom died on a Tuesday, the 16th of March 2021. 3:17 in the afternoon. He was fixing the sprinkler system, the one he'd installed himself in 1994, because paying someone to do what you can do yourself is just throwing money away. He dropped dead between the petunias and the present. Flagstone path he'd laid with his own hands in. 1,987, back when his knees still worked and the world made sense. Massive heart attack, gone before he hit the ground. 42 years of marriage. 42 years of him leaving his coffee cup on the bathroom counter every single morning. 42 years of him humming Brown-Eyed Girl while he shaved. 42 years of knowing exactly how someone takes their toast and what side of the bed they'll always sleep on and which stupid joke will make them laugh even when they're trying to stay mad at you. All of it. Gone. In the time it takes to draw one breath and not get another. We'd paid off the house in 2009. I I remember the day we burned the mortgage papers in the fireplace. Tom insisted we do it ceremonially, like we were Vikings or something. He poured us each a shot of whiskey, clicked his glass against mine, and said, "Evie, we did it. This house is ours. Nobody can ever take it from us." I thought that was true. I thought the worst thing life could do to me was already done, taking Tom, leaving me alone in this butter-yellow house with burgundy shutters that he'd painted himself because he said the color reminded him of autumn in Vermont, where we'd honeymooned in 1979. The house sat on a quiet corner lot in Willow Creek, a neighborhood that used to be cornfields before the developers came in the 80s. We were one of the original families. Watched the whole place grow up around us. Back then, people knew each other, borrowed sugar, watched each other's kids, helped jumpstart cars in winter. Tom was a Marine, served in Desert Storm. Every morning for 42 years, he raised the American flag on the pole in our front yard at exactly 6 a.m. Every evening at sunset, he lowered it, folded it into a perfect triangle, and stored it in the hall closet. When he died, the flag stayed up. I kept his tradition, stars and stripes flying 365 days a year, because Tom believed in things like honor and country and keeping your damn word. We had 3 garden gnomes. Tom named them Huey, Dewey, and Louie after the nephews in the Donald Duck cartoons he watched as a kid. He bought them at a yard sale in 2003 for $2 each and planted them near the mailbox. They were tacky and ridiculous, and I loved them because Tom loved them. I thought I'd spend the rest of my life in that house. Quiet, peaceful, remembering. I thought the hardest part was behind me. God, I was naive. Veronica and Mark Whitaker moved in 6 months after Tom died. September 2021. They bought the McMansion at 1427 Sycamore Lane, the gaudy corner lot with the 3-car garage that had sat empty since the 2008 crash. 5,000 square feet of beige, stucco, and fake columns that looked like a discount Roman temple. I was sitting on my porch swing when the moving truck arrived. Veronica stepped out of a white Lexus SUV wearing Lululemon yoga pants and designer sunglasses that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She looked at the neighborhood like she was inspecting something she'd already decided to improve. Mark followed. Built like a thumb in cargo shorts, phone pressed to his ear, barking orders at the movers. "Careful with that credenza, that's $5,000 of Italian walnut." I waved. Small town friendly, the way Tom taught me. Veronica glanced at me, at my yellow house, at Huey, Dewey, and Louie, standing guard by the mailbox. She didn't wave back. 3 weeks later, she showed up at her first HOA meeting, carrying a clipboard and wearing a smile that should have come with a warning label. "I'm Veronica Whitaker," she announced, standing up without being asked to speak. "And I think it's time we took this neighborhood into the 21st century." Our HOA president at the time was old Phil Morrison, a retired accountant who'd been running the association for 11 years with the revolutionary principle of leaving people the hell alone. Monthly dues were $15. Annual meeting agenda was usually, "Anybody got problems? No? Great. Who brought cookies?" Phil looked at Veronica like she was speaking Klingon. "We're doing fine," he said slowly. "Are we?" Veronica's smile sharpened, "Because I've been documenting violations, peeling paint, weeds, cars that should be in museums, not driveways." Her eyes flicked to me. Lawn ornaments that look like they came from a dollar store. She started attending every meeting, brought research from other neighborhoods, photos of pristine subdivisions with matching mailboxes and perfectly edged lawns that looked like pudding greens. By December, Phil resigned. "Stomach cancer," he said, but I think Veronica's presentations gave it to him. She was elected president 3 weeks later, ran unopposed because nobody else wanted the job. By March 2022, the covenants read like a prison rulebook. No clotheslines, no lawn ornaments, no vehicles over 5 years old parked in driveways overnight. Holiday lights down by January 2nd or face a $250 per day fine. Grass must be uniformly green at all times, no clover, no dandelions, no bare patches. Brenda Fletcher and Susan Martinez became her enforcers, two women who'd spent their whole lives looking for someone to tell them they were special. Veronica gave them clipboards and titles. Compliance officers. They patrolled the neighborhood like the Gestapo in visors and sensible walking shoes. The Ramirez family got hit first. Their kids had a swing set in the backyard visible from the street if you stood in just the right spot and craned your neck like a damn ostrich. Visual blight. Veronica called it at the April meeting, property value concern. The Ramirez family paid $1,200 in fines before selling their house that summer for less than they'd paid for it. Old Mrs. Chen got cited for planting vegetables instead of flowers in her front garden. "This is a residential neighborhood," Veronica declared. "Not a farm." Mrs. Chen, who was 83 and survived the Cultural Revolution, stood up at the meeting and said, in heavily accented English, "In my country we starved. Here I grow food. You want to fine me for tomatoes?" Veronica fined her $800. Mrs. Chen moved in with her daughter in California 2 months later. I watched it happen. All of it. Sat in the back row of those meetings, hands folded, mouth shut. But I was paying attention. They came for me in waves. The first fine arrived in May 2022, $50 for a non-conforming mailbox post. My mailbox was the same plain black post with a curved arm that Tom installed in 1988, perfectly functional. Held mail just fine, but it didn't match Veronica's aesthetic vision. I paid it. Out of spite, mostly. Wanted to see how far she'd push. The second fine came in July. $200 for unauthorized lawn ornaments, creating visual blight and reducing neighborhood property values. Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Tom's gnomes. I called Veronica directly. Professional. Polite. "These gnomes have been here for 19 years, I said. "They're not hurting anyone." "They're hurting property values," she said. I could hear her smiling through the phone. "Remove them within 7 days or the fine doubles." I didn't remove them. The fine doubled. I paid $400 to keep 3 concrete gnomes in my yard. The third fine came in September. $500 because my grass went brown for 9 days while I was in the hospital with pneumonia. Let me say that again. I was in the hospital, unable to breathe without assistance, and Veronica fined me because my lawn wasn't green enough. I didn't pay that one, threw the notice in the trash where it belonged. That's when the real harassment started. Daily drive-bys. Brenda and Susan. Phones out, photographing every dandelion, every blade of grass that dared grow half an inch too tall. They'd stop their cars in front of my house, lean out the window, zoom in on imaginary violations. One morning, I woke up to find my American flag on the ground, pole snapped in half like someone had taken a baseball bat to it. No proof. No witnesses. But at 5:47 a.m., I saw Brenda power walking past my house with a satisfied little smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. I tried making peace. God help me, I tried. I went to the August 2023 meeting with a plate of oatmeal raisin cookies, Tom's recipe, the one with extra cinnamon and a touch of vanilla that people always asked for at church potlucks. I set them on the refreshment table with a note. From Evelyn. Enjoy. Veronica took one bite, walked directly to the trash can, spat it out, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "We have standards here, Evelyn. This isn't a bake sale at the senior center." Susan and Brenda cackled. Mark snorted into his beer. Nobody ate the cookies. They sat there all night, untouched, until I took them home and threw them away. But the worst part wasn't what they did to me. It was watching what they did to my neighbors. The Garcia family, at 1,409 Maple young couple with 3 kids under 7, they installed a playset in their backyard. Bright yellow slide, red swing set, the kind of thing kids need to burn energy and just be kids. Structure exceeds height restrictions by 14 inches, Veronica declared. Also constitutes visual pollution. The Garcias fought it. Went to meetings, hired a surveyor, proved the structure met all county codes. Didn't matter. The fines kept coming. $200 a week, then $500, then $1,000. By March 2023, they owed $31,000. They lost the house to foreclosure in June. I watched them load their kids into a U-Haul on a Wednesday morning. The youngest was crying. The mother was trying not to. The father kept saying, "It's okay, Joe. It's gonna be okay." It wasn't okay. The Patel family at 1512 Oak got hit for excessive holiday lighting. They put up Diwali decorations, beautiful strings of lights, colorful Rangoli patterns, statues of Ganesha. It was gorgeous. Made the whole street look alive. Veronica called it culturally inappropriate for a traditional American neighborhood. The Patels sold in August, took a $70,000 loss, and moved to a neighborhood where their culture was welcome. And Mr. Jenkins. Sweet old Mr. Jenkins at 1388 Elm, Vietnam vet, 76 years old. His pride and joy was a 1967 Mustang Fastback he'd been restoring for 30 years, pristine condition. He'd drive it to the VFW every Sunday, slow and careful, treating that car like the miracle it was. Vehicle exceeds age restrictions for overnight street parking, Veronica said. Mr. Jenkins explained it was in his driveway, not the street. Showed photos. She changed the rule. No vehicles over 15 years old visible from the street, driveway, or not. They towed his Mustang at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. Mr. Jenkins had a stroke that Friday, died the following Monday. His kids sold the house for pennies on the dollar. Couldn't bear to come back. I went to his funeral, sat in the back, listened to his son give the eulogy. "My father loved that car," he said, voice breaking. "It was the last thing that made him smile." I sat there in my black dress, hands folded in my lap, and felt something inside me change, not break, sharpen. The lien notice was taped to my front door on a Tuesday in June 2023. Official document. Legal language. Big red letters. Notice of intent to foreclose. Total fines, $28,400. For gnomes. For grass. For a mailbox. For being alive in my own house on my own property that I'd paid for with 42 years of work and sacrifice and early mornings and missed vacations so we could max out our retirement accounts. I stood there on my porch holding that paper, and I could hear Tom's voice in my head. "This house is ours, Evie. Nobody can ever take it from us." But they were taking it. In August, they scheduled a vote at the monthly HOA meeting to begin official foreclosure proceedings on my fully paid-off home. I sat at my kitchen table that night with the notice spread in front of me. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses in on you and makes you remember every single thing you've lost. I could sell, take whatever I could get and move to some apartment where the walls are thin and you can hear your neighbors' televisions and there are no gnomes and no flagpole and nothing that remembers Tom. I could fight in court, spend years and thousands of dollars arguing with people who had nothing but time and cruelty. Or I could stop being sad. I could get dangerous quiet. People think widows are helpless. They see the white hair and the cane and the orthopedic shoes and they assume the brain's gone soft, that we spend our days watching game shows and forgetting what we had for breakfast. They never ask what's in the bedroom closet. They never ask what 42 years of maxing out IRAs and buying the right stocks at the right time and living on a teacher's pension while your investments compound looks like when it matures. They never ask because they're too busy laughing. That's their first mistake. That night, sitting at my kitchen table with foreclosure papers in my hands, I made a decision. I stopped being a victim. I became something else. Something patient. Something calculating. Something that doesn't forgive. I opened my laptop, the one Tom bought me before he died, because he said I should stay connected to the world, and I started doing research. Real estate attorneys, the best in the state, the most aggressive, the ones who don't lose. I wasn't going to fight them in court. I was going to buy them out of existence, and they were never going to see it coming. The Vanguard letter arrived 3 weeks after Tom's funeral. I almost threw it away. It looked like every other piece of condolence mail I'd been getting, thick envelope, formal letterhead, probably another "we're so sorry for your loss" card from someone at Tom's old command. I opened it, standing by the kitchen sink, half distracted, still wearing the same sweatpants I'd worn for 4 days straight. The first line made me sit down hard on the linoleum floor. Dear Mrs. Harper, we are writing to inform you of the current balance in your joint investment accounts following the transfer of assets from Thomas Harper, deceased, to Evelyn Marie Harper, beneficiary. There was a number. I read it 3 times. Then I counted the digits to make sure I wasn't having a stroke. 8 figures. Liquid. Not including the house. Not including Tom's pension. Not including my teacher retirement. 8 figures. $12,473,618. I sat there on my kitchen floor with my back against the cabinet and I laughed. The kind of laugh that turns into crying, then back into laughing until you're not sure which one you're doing anymore. 42 years of discipline. That's what this number represented. Tom and I got married in 1979. We were young and stupid and so broke we honeymooned in a borrowed cabin in Vermont because that's all we could afford. We started contributing to our IRAs the year they were invented. $1,975 for Tom, $1,981 for me when I got my teaching certificate. We maxed them out. Every single year. $6,000 back then felt like a fortune we didn't have. We ate spaghetti 4 nights a week. Wore clothes until they fell apart. Drove cars until the wheels literally fell off. But we never, ever missed a contribution. And Tom had a gift. He read financial reports the way other people read novels. He didn't day trade. Didn't chase hot tips. He researched companies, understood what they did, believed in their futures. He bought Apple in 1997 at $11 a share when everyone said the company was dying. They're going to make something that changes everything, he told me. I can feel it. He bought Amazon in 2001 at $97 during the dot-com crash. People will always want books delivered to their door, he said. And once they start, they won't stop at books. He bought Tesla at the IPO in 2010. Electric cars are the future, Evie. Might take 20 years, but they're coming. We held. Through crashes, corrections, recessions, we held. We lived on Tom's Marine pension and my teacher's salary. Modest, careful, never touched the investments except to reinvest dividends and rebalance once a year. I never looked at the balances. Tom handled all that. He'd smile sometimes when he checked the accounts, pat my hand, and say, "We're going to be just fine, Evie." I thought just fine meant a comfortable retirement. Maybe travel a little. See the Grand Canyon. I didn't think it meant this. I never told a soul, not my sister Ruth, who was always asking for loans, not my book club friends who complained about tight budgets over cheap wine, not the financial advisor who sent quarterly statements I never opened. I just kept living my life. I kept driving my dented 2004 CR-V with 187,000 miles, kept mowing my lawn with the push mower Tom bought in 1993, kept wearing cardigans I'd owned since the Clinton administration. Because changing how I lived would mean accepting Tom was really gone, would mean moving forward into some new version of myself I didn't recognize. So I stayed the same. The little old widow in the yellow house with the gnomes and the flag. Let them think I was poor. Let them think I was helpless. Let them laugh. But that night, the night I decided to stop being a victim, something shifted. I wasn't suffering anymore. I was watching. And I was learning. And I was going to use every single dollar Tom and I had earned to destroy the people who tried to take the life we'd built. Tom always said the best revenge is living well. I was about to prove him right. Finding the right attorney took 3 weeks of research. I didn't want someone nice. I didn't want someone who'd suggest mediation or finding common ground. I wanted a killer, someone who viewed real estate law as blood sport. Jonathan Hale's name kept appearing in articles I shouldn't have been reading. Ruthless litigator destroys developers' $40M project. Attorney Jonathan Hale makes opposing counsel cry on stand literally. That last article included a photo. Man in his early 60s, silver hair, eyes like a shark. The caption read, "Hale leaves courthouse after securing unprecedented damages for client." I called his office on a Monday morning in September 2023. The receptionist sounded bored. Mr. Hale's consultation fee is $1,500 per hour. Retainer starts at $50,000. His schedule is booked for the next 6 weeks. Tell him I'll pay $100,000 retainer, I said. Today, and I want to see him tomorrow. Long pause. May I ask what this concerns? Tell him it concerns buying an entire HOA out from under itself. Tell him it concerns revenge. Tell him an old woman with $12 million would like to have a conversation. I got an appointment for Tuesday at 2 p.m. His office occupied the top floor of a glass tower downtown, the kind of building that looks like it's made of money and intimidation. Floor-to-ceiling windows, marble floors, artwork that probably cost more than most people's houses. Jonathan Hale's corner office was bigger than my living room and dining room combined. He stood when I walked in expensive suit, silver hair perfect, handshake firm but not crushing. Mrs. Harper, please, sit. I sat in the leather chair across from his desk, noticed he'd positioned it lower than his own chair. Power play, smart. My receptionist tells me you want to buy your HOA, he said. That's an unusual goal. I want to buy the houses in my neighborhood, I corrected. All of them, or enough to control the voting interest. He leaned back, studying me. I could see him cataloging details, the worn cardigan, the sensible shoes, the cane leaning against my chair. Mrs. Harper, with all due respect, that would require substantial capital, multiple millions. The legal structure alone. I have $12.4 million liquid. I slid the Vanguard statement across his desk. I can have it transferred to an operating account within 3 business days. I want to set up an LLC, blind trusts, whatever it takes, so nobody knows it's me buying. He picked up the statement. Read it carefully, set it down. His expression changed. The polite skepticism vanished. Something sharp and interested took its place. Tell me everything, he said. I told him about Tom, about Veronica, about the fines, the harassment, the families destroyed, the Garcias, the Patels, Mr. Jenkins and his Mustang. I told him about the lien on my house, the foreclosure vote scheduled for next month. When I finished, Jonathan Hale was silent for a long moment. Then he smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who'd just been handed a case he'd tell war stories about for the rest of his career. Mrs. Harper, he said slowly, I've spent 30 years in real estate law. I've handled billion-dollar commercial deals. I've destroyed developers who thought they were untouchable. He leaned forward. But this is going to be deeply satisfying. Over the next hour, he outlined the strategy. Harper Quiet Holdings, LLC, registered in Delaware for privacy, operating through multiple subsidiary LLCs with names that revealed nothing. We'd use blind trusts to purchase properties. A property manager in Scottsdale, someone Jonathan had worked with for years, someone who knew how to stay quiet and ask no questions, would handle all transactions. They'll never trace it back to you, Jonathan said, not until you want them to. The plan was elegant, simple, brutal. Wait for Veronica's harassment to force more foreclosures and panic sales. Buy every single one. Cash offers, quick closes, no contingencies. We'd pay slightly over market to ensure sellers accepted immediately. Rent properties back to original owners when possible, at below market rates. Build goodwill, build loyalty. But most importantly, Jonathan said, we collect evidence. Every meeting, every fine, every violation notice. And Mrs. Harper, he pulled out a yellow legal pad and started making notes. I'm going to audit their books. Every receipt, every expense, every penny that goes through that HOA account. You think they're stealing? I asked. His smile went dangerous. Mrs. Harper, in my experience, people who abuse power always abuse money. Always. We just have to find where they hid it. I signed the retainer agreement, transferred $100,000 that afternoon. As I stood to leave, Jonathan walked me to the door. One question, he said. When this is over, when you control the HOA and have them dead to rights on fraud, what do you want? Prison time? Financial ruin? Public humiliation? I thought about Tom, about his garden, about his flag on the ground with the pole snapped in half. All of it, I said quietly. I want all of it. Jonathan Hale's smile could have cut glass. Then that's exactly what you'll get. The Garcia house hit the market on the 15th of September 2023. $287,000. Motivated seller. Quick close desired. Real estate code for family in crisis, bank breathing down their neck, take what you can get. I was sitting on my porch swing when the for sale sign went up, watched Carlos Garcia hammer it into the lawn with his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles jumping from across the street. His wife Maria stood on the porch holding their youngest little Sophia, 4 years old, still in her preschool unicorn backpack. The older two boys were throwing rocks at the curb, angry in that way kids get when they don't understand why life suddenly got unfair. Jonathan called me 20 minutes later. Garcia house is listed. I'm calling the agent now. How much? Listed at $287,000. I'll offer $305,000. Cash. 7-day close. Do it. 48 hours later, we owned it. The agent told the Garcias they'd gotten lucky, some investment company swooping in, paying over asking, no inspections, no financing, a miracle in their darkest moment. They closed on September 22. I watched from my living room window as they loaded the U-Haul. Carlos carrying boxes, face blank. Maria crying quietly while packing the minivan. The kids looking confused, clutching toys they'd been told they couldn't bring. I waited until sunset. Until the sold sign gleamed in the streetlights and the U-Haul was packed and they were taking one last walk through their empty house. Then I called. Mr. Garcia? My name is Eleanor Morrison. I represent the company that just purchased your home. Silence. Then, if you're calling to gloat, I'm calling to offer you a lease, I said. Month to month. $1,200 per month. All utilities included. You'd be responsible for basic maintenance. No HOA fees, will handle those. Longer silence. That's $800 less than our mortgage was, he said slowly. Why would you? Mr. Garcia, I don't know your full story, but I know this HOA has hurt good families. My employer believes in rectifying injustices when possible. Are you interested? He started crying. I heard Maria in the background asking what was wrong, heard him say, they want to rent it back to us for $1,200 a month. I gave him 48 hours to decide. They called back in 4. We signed the lease on September 27. They never unloaded the U-Haul, just reversed direction, carried everything back inside, and put their kids to bed in their own rooms that night. I walked to their house the next evening. Wore a disguise I'd been practicing, different wig, thick glasses, padded coat that changed my shape. Knocked on the door, claiming to be from the property management company, just checking that everything was satisfactory. Maria opened the door. Her eyes were still red, but she was smiling. This is a miracle, she said. We were going to move in with my mother-in-law in Phoenix, 6 of us in a 2-bedroom apartment. I'm glad we could help, I said. She grabbed my hand. Tell your boss, whoever they are, tell them they saved our family. Tell them we'll never forget this. I promised I would. Walking home, I felt something complicated twist in my chest. Satisfaction, yes. Vindication, definitely. But also anger. Anger that this was necessary. That I had to spend millions to undo what Veronica had destroyed. That the Garcias were grateful for mercy that should have been their basic right. My phone buzzed. Text from Jonathan. 1 down. Many to go. I looked at the Garcia house, lights on in every window now, kids' silhouettes moving past upstairs, the yellow slide visible in the backyard where it belonged. I typed back, how many houses are currently in distress or foreclosure in Willow Creek? His response came fast. 7 confirmed, 4 more probables. Buy them all, I sent, every single one. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Mrs. Harper, this is going to get expensive. I smiled in the darkness. Good. Over the next 15 months, we became a force of nature disguised as coincidence. Every time a house hit the market, foreclosure, estate sale, panic listing, Harper Quiet Holdings materialized like a ghost with a checkbook. October 2023. The Patel House. They'd been cited for excessive holiday lighting during Diwali. $2,500 in fines they couldn't pay. Sold at a loss. We bought it for $298,000. Rented it to a young nurse named Jennifer for $1,100 a month. She cried when she signed the lease. November 2023. Mr. Jenkins' estate. His kids wanted nothing to do with Willow Creek after what happened to their father. Listed at $265,000, we paid $280,000 and rented it to a retired couple who promised to maintain the garden Mr. Jenkins had loved. December 2023. 3 more houses. Families crushed by Veronica's fines, desperate to escape. We bought them all. I kept a ledger. Not just finances, although Jonathan handled those with obsessive precision. I kept an emotional ledger. Every family we helped, every displaced resident who got a second chance, every time someone didn't have to abandon their home because of a tyrant with a clipboard. I attended HOA meetings like clockwork, always in the back row, always taking notes in a little spiral notebook with terrible handwriting so nobody could read over my shoulder. I documented every violation notice issued, every fine levied, every vote taken, every smug comment from Veronica's lips. She never noticed me. None of them did. I was furniture, wallpaper, the pathetic old widow who kept showing up even though everyone knew her foreclosure was coming. Meanwhile, Veronica's Instagram was a masterpiece of oblivious irony. She posted daily photos of herself in designer athleisure, power-washing sidewalks that were already spotless. Selfies with Susan and Brenda, holding wine glasses, caption, HOA Queens, ensuring neighborhood excellence, number property values, number standards matter. One post showed her inspecting a resident's mailbox with a ruler, making sure it met the exact height requirement. Caption, attention to detail is what separates good neighborhoods from great ones. Who's with me? Comments were disabled, of course, but her follower count was growing. Other HOA tyrants from around the country exchanging tips on how to torture their neighbors more efficiently. She was becoming a minor influencer in the world of residential fascism. She had no idea the ground was disappearing beneath her perfect Lululemon-clad feet. By March 2024, we owned 21 houses. By August 2024, 34. By December 2024, 67. Each one a small victory, each one a piece removed from Veronica's foundation. Jonathan set up an encrypted cloud drive where I could check our progress. Color-coded map of Willow Creek. Blue dots. Our properties. Red dots. Properties still suffering under Veronica's regime. Gray dots. Veronica's allies' houses we'd have to buy from under them eventually. I'd pour a cup of tea, Tom's favorite Earl Grey, and sit at my kitchen table at night, studying that map like a general planning a siege. The properties formed a pattern. We owned the distressed ones, obviously. But we'd also started buying from people who simply wanted out, retirees tired of fighting, young families who'd given up, anyone who'd had enough of Veronica's reign of terror. The irony was exquisite. Veronica thought her strict enforcement was raising property values. She posted about it constantly. Another successful year protecting your investment. Property values in Willow Creek up 12%. What she didn't know was that we were paying 8 to 10% over market to close quickly. We were artificially inflating the values she was bragging about. She was celebrating the very mechanism of her own destruction. I met secretly with displaced families, always in neutral locations, Denny's on Route 9, the public library, coffee shops across town. I'd sit across from these people who'd lost everything, and I'd offer them something nobody else would, hope. I can't tell you who I work for, I'd say. But I can tell you this. Help is coming. Hold on just a little longer. Things are going to change. Some believed me. Some thought I was crazy. But when Harper Quiet Holdings bought their houses and offered reasonable leases, they stopped questioning. They just signed the papers and moved back home. By January 2025, we owned 113 of the 178 lots in Willow Creek, 62%. Majority control. I sat at my kitchen table the night we hit that number, looking at Jonathan's spreadsheet. We'd spent $27.4 million. Every penny of Tom's and my life's work, plus some strategic borrowing against the properties themselves. But we owned the neighborhood. We owned Veronica's kingdom. She just didn't know it yet. Jonathan's forensic accounting took 4 months. He hired a team, 2 CPAs, a fraud investigator, and a paralegal who specialized in HOA embezzlement cases. They worked out of a conference room in his office that looked like something from a crime documentary. Whiteboards covered in numbers, timelines, flowcharts showing money moving from account to account. I visited once a week for updates. The first discovery came in February 2024. The landscaping contract, Jonathan said, sliding a manila folder across the table. Veronica's company, Whitaker Property Services, has been paying Peak Green Landscaping $18,000 per month for community maintenance. That seems high, I said. It's absurd. Comparable neighborhoods our size pay $4,000, $6,000 monthly. But here's where it gets interesting. He pulled out incorporation documents. Peak Green Landscaping is owned by one Marcus Green, who happens to be Veronica's cousin. And the invoices, he pulled out another stack, are works of fiction. He spread them out. February 2024, 400 billable hours. March, 380 hours. April, 425 hours. Mrs. Harper, there are only 720 hours in a 30-day month. They're claiming they spent more than half of all available time maintaining our little neighborhood. How much total? I asked. Over 3 years? $648,000. And I can prove maybe $150,000 of actual work was done. The rest is pure theft. But that was just the beginning. Mark Whitaker's construction company, Whitaker Build Solutions, had been doing emergency repairs to community property, fixing sprinkler heads that weren't broken, urgent sidewalk replacements that happened to occur every 6 months. Jonathan's investigator found invoices for $8,500 to replace a single sprinkler valve. Home Depot sold the same valve for $47. Total from Mark's company, $293,000 over 3 years. Susan Martinez, sweet, quiet Susan with her clipboard and her compliance reports, had been skimming from the community pool fund. $5,000 here, $8,000 there. Equipment purchases that never materialized. Chemical treatments billed at triple market rate from her brother-in-law's pool supply company. Total, $87,000. Brenda Fletcher's connection was subtler. Her nephew owned Ultimate Towing, the company that conveniently got called every time an unauthorized vehicle needed to be removed at 3 a.m. They charged the HOA a coordination fee of $200 per tow, plus kickbacks that showed up as consulting fees on Brenda's tax returns. Total, $43,000. Jonathan had spreadsheets, bank statements, canceled checks, email trails where they'd been just stupid enough to discuss their schemes in writing. The smoking gun came in April 2024. An email from Veronica to Mark, subject line, Pool Fund Surplus. Hey babe, Susan says there's $12K extra in pool account this quarter. Can your cousin invoice for concrete repair and kick half back to us? Need new living room furniture? XOXO. Mark's response, already on it. Love you, baby. Jonathan printed it out, slid it across the table like he was serving a death warrant. They're going to prison, he said flatly. Or, they're going to pay. Their choice. I read the email. Read it again. All that destruction. All those families ruined. Mr. Jenkins dead from a stroke. For living room furniture. How much total? I asked, voice steady. $487,000 we can prove. Probably closer to $600,000 if we had more time. I folded my hands on the table. Jonathan, I want every receipt. Every invoice, every email. I want documentation that would make a prosecutor weep with joy, and I want it ready to present at the December meeting. The December meeting where they're planning to finalize your foreclosure? He asked. I smiled. That's the one. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. Mrs. Harper, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've seen revenge. I've facilitated revenge. But this, he gestured at the whiteboards, the evidence, the map of Willow Creek, this is art. Tom always said patience is a virtue, I said. He just didn't mention it's also a weapon. Jonathan pulled out his calendar. The 8th of December 2025, he said. Special session of the HOA. They've already scheduled it, thinking they're rubber stamping your foreclosure. Instead, we're going to, what's the legal term I'm looking for? Absolutely destroy them. I want criminal charges filed the next morning if they don't accept our settlement, I said. No mercy. No second chances. They won't get any, Jonathan promised. Mrs. Harper, by the time we're done, Veronica Whitaker is going to wish she'd never heard of Willow Creek. I stood, gathering my purse and cane. She already wishes that, I said. She just doesn't know it yet. Not everything was about the big plan. Some things were about making it right. In March 2024, I asked Jonathan to track down Mr. Jenkins' 1967 Mustang Fastback, the car that got him killed. It took 6 weeks and cost me $3,800 in investigator fees, but we found it at a tow yard auction in Nevada. Some flipper had bought it for $4,200, planning to part it out. I paid him $22,000 cash to buy it back. Didn't haggle. Didn't care. Then I hired the best classic car restoration shop in the state. I want it perfect, I told the owner. The way it was the day it was stolen. Better, if possible. Ma'am, that's going to run you $35,000 minimum. Fine. How long? 8 months. Maybe 9. I need it by Christmas. He looked at the car, looked at me, saw something in my face that made him nod. I'll make it happen. They worked miracles. New paint, the original 1967 Acapulco blue, original spec interior, engine rebuilt to factory standards but with modern reliability improvements hidden where you couldn't see them. It was perfect. I contacted Mr. Jenkins' son through Facebook in early December, told him I was an estate attorney settling some final HOA business related to his father's property, asked if we could meet. He agreed, suspicious but curious. We met at a coffee shop near his office on December 23. He was in his early 40s, Tom's build, his father's eyes. I don't understand, he said. My father's estate was settled months ago. This isn't about the estate, I said gently. It's about making something right. I slid him an envelope with photos of the Mustang. Restored. Perfect. Gleaming in the restoration shop's lights. He went very still. That's my dad's car. It is. And it's yours now. Title's in the envelope. No strings, no cost. Someone found it and thought it should come home. His hands were shaking. But how, who? Does it matter? I asked softly. Your father loved that car. It was stolen from him, and that theft took something more than metal and paint. This can't bring him back. But maybe it can give you a piece of him. He started crying right there in the coffee shop. He was teaching me to drive in that car, he said, summer of 1983. He let me shift gears in the parking lot. I was 9. It's my best memory of him. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Then drive it for him. Take your kids out in it. Make new memories. We presented the car on Christmas Eve. His whole family came to the restoration shop. His wife, his 2 kids, his sister. When they rolled the Mustang out of the bay, doors opened, key in the ignition, his kids started cheering. His son, Mr. Jenkins' grandson, was 8 years old. Same age his father had been when he first sat in that car. Can we go for a ride, Dad? He asked. Yeah, buddy, Mr. Jenkins' son said, voice thick. Yeah, we can. I watched them drive away. The blue Mustang, disappearing into Christmas traffic, 3 generations of Jenkins' family inside. That night I went to Tom's grave. The cemetery was quiet. My footsteps crunched on frost-covered grass. I stood in front of his headstone, simple granite. His name, his dates. Beloved husband. Marine. Friend. We're making it right, Tom, I said aloud. All the things they broke. All the people they hurt. We're making it right. The wind picked up. Bare tree branches rattled. I like to think it was him, telling me to keep going, telling me to finish what we started. January 2025 brought the final phase. We owned 113 of 178 properties, but owning them wasn't enough. We needed votes. We needed proxies. We needed the legal authority to take over the HOA completely. Jonathan drafted the documents. Simple, clear, irrevocable. I, name, owner of property, at address, hereby grant my voting proxy to Harper Quiet Holdings, LLC, for all HOA matters, effective immediately and continuing until revoked in writing. The anonymous letter campaign started February 1. I wrote them myself, printed them at the library, used generic envelopes and stamps. Each one said the same thing. Relief is coming. The harassment will end. The fines will be canceled. The tyrants will face justice. Hold on just a little longer. Trust is coming. Change is coming. Freedom is coming. A friend. I mailed them to every house in Willow Creek that wasn't owned by Veronica's inner circle. People started talking. At the February HOA meeting, I heard whispers in the hallway. Did you get the letter? Someone's planning something. Maybe there's hope, Veronica noticed. Of course she did. She addressed it during the meeting. It has come to my attention that certain residents have been receiving anonymous correspondence suggesting some kind of uprising. She said the word like it tasted bad. I want to make it absolutely clear. This HOA is functioning perfectly. Property values are up. Standards are maintained. Any attempt to undermine our authority will be met with immediate legal action. She stared directly at me when she said it. I smiled sweetly and wrote in my little notebook. The secret meeting started in March. I'd contact residents through burner email addresses, suggest neutral locations. Denny's on Route 9 became my regular spot booth in the back, coffee that tasted like motor oil, vinyl seats that squeaked. People came. Cautiously at first, then desperately. The Richardsons, who'd been fined $8,000 for planting roses instead of approved shrubs. The Chens, who were being harassed for parking their work van in their own driveway. The Kowalskis, facing foreclosure for a storage shed that was 3 inches too tall. I'd sit across from them, this little old lady with white hair and a cardigan, and I'd slide the proxy form across the table. Sign this, I'd say. Trust me, things are about to change. Who are you, they'd ask. Someone who's had enough. Most signed without further questions, some needed convincing. One man, David Rodriguez. 1,512. Oak pushed the paper back. Are you the one buying all the houses? He asked. I met his eyes. Does it matter who, as long as someone's helping? That's not an answer. No. I agreed. But it's all the answer I can give right now. In 11 months, you'll understand. You'll either trust me now, or you'll understand later and wish you'd trusted me. Your choice. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he pulled out a pen and signed. By November, I had proxy votes from 147 of the 178 properties. 83% of the neighborhood. Veronica had no idea. She was too busy planning her moment of triumph, the December 8 meeting where she'd finalize my foreclosure, cementing her legend as the HOA president who'd driven out the last holdout from the old neighborhood. She'd already written the Instagram post. I know because Susan let it slip at the November meeting. Veronica's so excited. She has this whole speech prepared about upholding standards and protecting property values. Jonathan and I met at his office on December 1 to finalize everything. The proxies are solid, he said. Even if every one of her allies shows up, we control 83% of the vote. We can dissolve the board, elect new leadership, and change every single rule all in one night. What about the criminal charges? I asked. He patted a thick binder on his desk, ready to file the morning of December 9. I've already had conversations with the district attorney's office. They're very interested in prosecuting HOA fraud. Apparently it's an epidemic they'd like to make an example of. I nodded. And my foreclosure will be dismissed immediately upon your election as majority stakeholder. Technically, you can't foreclose on yourself. He smiled. Mrs. Harper, have you thought about what you want to say tomorrow night? I had. I'd been thinking about it for 2 years. I want to watch them realize what's happening, I said. I want to see the exact moment they understand they've lost, that they never had a chance, that every move they made was building the trap they're now caught in. Jonathan leaned back in his chair. You know what my favorite part of this is? He said. It's not the money we'll recover. It's not even the justice, though. That's substantial. What is it? It's that they'll know you were there the whole time. In the back of every meeting, taking notes, watching, waiting. They'll realize you weren't weak, you were loading the gun. Tom's gun, I said quietly. I'm just pulling the trigger. November slipped into December. Veronica scheduled the special session for December 8, 7 p.m., Community Center. Agenda item. Final vote on lien foreclosure. 1447 Maple Street, Harper E. She'd reserved the main hall, the big one that seated 50 people. She was expecting a crowd, wanted witnesses to her victory. She had no idea she was right about the crowd, wrong about the victory. Jonathan and I met on December 5 for the final walkthrough. Timing is critical, he said, spreading documents across his conference table. You enter first. Let them laugh. Let them gloat. Get them confident. How long do I wait? I asked. 30 seconds, just long enough for them to commit to their mockery. Then I come in. He showed me the documents he'd carry, the ownership records, the proxy votes, the fraud evidence, the settlement offer, the criminal complaint, ready to file. Everything in order, he said. Every I dotted, every T crossed. They won't have a single procedural leg to stand on. We rehearsed my entrance, how I'd stand, where I'd look, the timing of my first words. Keep it simple, Jonathan advised. You're not here to monologue. You're here to execute. What if Veronica runs? I asked. His smile went cold. I've already coordinated with Detective Morrison at the county sheriff's office. If she tries to leave before signing the settlement, she'll be arrested in the parking lot. What about the others? Mark, Susan, Brenda? Same. They sign or they're charged. No third option. December 7, the night before. I couldn't sleep. I walked to the community center at midnight, stood outside in the cold, looking at the dark windows. Tomorrow night, those windows would be lit. The room would be full, and everything would change. I walked around to the back entrance, the one the janitor used. Door was unlocked, like it always was. Veronica's security was as sloppy as her bookkeeping. Inside, the big hall was empty. Chairs stacked against the walls, folding tables leaning in the corner. I walked to the front of the room. Stood where I'd stand tomorrow. Pictured their faces. Veronica, Mark, Susan, Brenda. Pictured the moment they'd understand. My phone buzzed. Text from Jonathan. Everything ready on my end. Get some rest. Tomorrow we make history. I typed back, Tom would have loved this. His response, Tom is loving this. I guarantee it. I went home. Made tea. Sat at my kitchen table. The yellow walls, Tom's favorite color. The gnomes on the windowsill, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, joined now by 12 more friends. The American flag folded in its case on the mantel, the one from Tom's funeral. Tomorrow, I said to the empty room. Tomorrow we make it right. At 6 a.m., I laid out my outfit. The same 20-year-old cardigan, the same sensible shoes, the same cane I'd been using since my knee surgery in 2019. The perfect costume for a harmless old widow. At 6:47 p.m., I got a text from Jonathan. Proxies filed. New board elected. You are officially the majority stakeholder and appointed president of Willow Creek HOA. Legal as of this moment. See you at 7:02. At 6:50 p.m., I got in my dented CR-V, still driving it, saving the Tesla reveal for later, and drove to the community center. I parked at the far end of the lot. Watched people arrive. Veronica's Lexus. Mark's BMW. Susan's Audi. Brenda's Mercedes. Our neighbors' cars, beat-up Toyotas, old Hondas, minivans held together with hope and duct tape. At exactly 7:02 p.m., I got out of my car, adjusted my cardigan, gripped my cane, picked up the manila folder containing absolutely nothing important, just props for the show, and walked toward the door. Behind me, Jonathan's black Mercedes pulled into the lot. Right on time, I pushed open the community center door and stepped into the future Veronica Whitaker never saw coming. The laughter died the second Jonathan Hale stepped through that door. He didn't rush, didn't announce himself with unnecessary drama, just walked to the front of the room with the kind of confidence that comes from holding a royal flush in a poker game where everyone else thinks they're winning. Veronica's wine glass slipped from her fingers. Crash. Red wine spread across the tile like arterial spray. Jonathan set his briefcase on the table, opened it with 2 precise clicks. Inside, documents stacked like bricks, evidence organized with surgical precision. He pulled out the first stack, placed it in front of Veronica like a dealer laying down cards. "Good evening," he said. "My name is Jonathan Hale, attorney at law. As of 6:47 this evening, I am the duly elected president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association." Mark started to stand. "That's not possible. We didn't vote." "You didn't need to vote." Jonathan's voice could have etched glass. 62% of the voting interest in this association now belongs to Evelyn Harper. Mrs. Harper collected proxies from 147 properties. She has appointed me president, vice president, treasurer, and, if necessary, executioner of her will regarding this organization. Veronica's knees buckled. She grabbed the table to stay upright. "That's illegal," she whispered. "Actually, it's textbook corporate governance." Jonathan placed another document on the table. Harper Quiet Holdings, LLC, which Mrs. Harper owns and controls, has purchased 113 properties in Willow Creek over the past 26 months. Every purchase was legal. Every proxy was validly obtained. Every vote was properly cast. From the back of the room, people started standing. The Garcias, the Richardsons, the Chens. Families I'd helped, families who'd signed proxies, families who'd been waiting for this moment. Someone started clapping. Then someone else. Then the whole back half of the room erupted in applause. Susan Martinez started crying. Not sad tears, panic tears, the kind that come when you realize the floor just disappeared. Brenda Fletcher stared straight ahead like she'd been unplugged. Mark went fish-belly white. Jonathan wasn't done. "Now, regarding the foreclosure proceeding against Mrs. Harper's property," he smiled, "that motion is dismissed. You cannot foreclose on someone who controls your organization. But let's talk about what else you've been doing." He placed another stack of documents on the table. This one was thicker. "Veronica Whitaker, 3 years as HOA president. During that time, you authorized payments totaling $648,000 to Peak Green Landscaping, a company owned by your cousin Marcus Green. Fair market value for services actually rendered approximately $150,000. Fraudulent billing, $498,000. Veronica opened her mouth. No sound came out. "Mark Whitaker, your company, Whitaker Build Solutions, invoiced this HOA for $293,000 in emergency repairs. I have receipts showing actual costs of roughly $60,000. Fraudulent billing, $233,000. Mark tried to speak. "That's not we can explain." Susan Martinez. "Community pool fund embezzlement through inflated chemical treatment costs and fictional equipment purchases. Total, $87,000. Susan's crying got louder. Brenda Fletcher. "Kickback scheme with ultimate towing, plus consulting fees paid to you personally for coordinating vehicle removals. Total, $43,000. Jonathan paused. "Let the numbers settle like fallout. Combined provable fraud, $487,000. We have bank records, canceled checks, email correspondence where you were stupid enough to discuss your schemes in writing." He pulled out a single sheet of paper, including this email from Veronica to Mark, subject line "Pool Fund Surplus," where you discussed kicking back HOA funds for living room furniture. The room went silent, except for Susan sobbing and someone in the back whispering, "Oh my God." Jonathan's voice dropped to something cold and final. "You destroyed families for furniture. You drove a man to a fatal stroke over a car. You forced children out of their homes over playground equipment." He closed the briefcase. "Tonight that ends." I finally spoke. My voice came out soft, almost sweet. "Hello, neighbors. Some of you have been laughing at me for 4 years. Tonight, I thought I'd return the favor." Veronica found her voice. It came out strangled. Desperate. "You can't do this. This is fraud. Conspiracy. I'll sue. I'll have you arrested for..." "For what?" I interrupted gently. "Buying houses legally? Collecting valid proxies? Exposing your embezzlement?" I stood. My cane made a slow, deliberate rhythm on the tile floor. Tap, tap, tap. I walked toward the front of the room, past the cheering neighbors, past the Garcias, who were openly crying now, past young families who'd signed proxies trusting a stranger. I stopped directly in front of Veronica. We were eye to eye. Me in my 20-year-old cardigan, her in designer athleisure that cost more than some people's monthly mortgage. 4 years ago, I said softly, you told me my house was an embarrassment to the neighborhood, that I should be ashamed to live in it. I let that hang in the air. You fined me for gnomes my dead husband named. You broke the flagpole he raised every morning for 42 years. You tried to steal the home we paid for with our lives' work. My voice never rose. Never needed to. Tonight, Veronica, I own your house. Her face went from white to gray. I own Brenda's house. I own Susan's house. I own Mark's house. I bought them all fair and square at the exact prices you forced other families to sell for. I reached into my folder, pulled out a single sheet of paper, handed it to her. I also own documentation of every unpermitted addition you made to your property. That beautiful sunroom, the one you built without permits, 1,200 square feet of unauthorized construction. Veronica stared at the paper, at the permit records, at the absence of approvals. Under the new HOA rules I'm instituting tonight, I continued, dues will be calculated based on square footage of unpermitted structures. Your monthly HOA dues are now $4,800. I watched the math hit her brain. $4,800 a month. $57,600 a year. You can't, she whispered. I can. I just did. I smiled. The same smile she'd given me when she handed out violation notices. Welcome to the new Willow Creek, Veronica. We have standards now. Mark tried to run. Literally stood up and headed for the door. 2 men in suits stepped into the doorway, badge holders on their belts. Going somewhere, Mr. Whitaker? One asked pleasantly. Jonathan's voice carried across the room. Detective Morrison. Detective Chan. Thank you for coming. These 4 individuals won't be leaving until they've heard our settlement offer. Veronica grabbed the table. Her perfect manicure looked ridiculous against the cheap laminate. What do you want? She asked. I let Jonathan answer that one. Jonathan stood, pulled out a document with multiple signature pages. You have 3 options, he said. Listen carefully because I'll only explain this once. He laid the settlement agreement on the table. Option 1. You resign from the HOA immediately. You repay the $487,000 you stole plus interest, bringing the total to $534,000. You sell your homes within 90 days and never set foot in Willow Creek again. In exchange, we do not file criminal charges. 500,000? Mark's voice cracked. We don't have... You have equity in your homes, retirement accounts, assets. Sell them. Find it. Jonathan's voice didn't soften. Or take option 2. He placed another document on the table. This one had a county seal. Option 2. We file criminal complaints tomorrow morning. The district attorney has already reviewed our evidence and is eager to prosecute. HOA fraud is an epidemic they'd like to make an example of. You'll face felony charges, prison time, asset forfeiture, and you'll still owe restitution. Susan was sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. There's an option 3, Jonathan added. You do nothing, refuse both options. In which case, we proceed with criminal charges, civil suits, and I personally ensure that every newspaper, television station, and true crime podcast in the state hears about the HOA tyrants who destroyed families to buy furniture. He pushed the settlement toward them. You have 30 seconds to decide. Mark broke first. It was her idea, he shouted, pointing at Veronica. The whole thing, the landscaping scam, the pool fund, everything. She planned it all. Veronica's head snapped toward him. You lying piece of... Sign the settlement, Brenda said suddenly. Her voice was dead, defeated. Just sign it. It's over. Susan reached for a pen with shaking hands. Veronica stared at the document, at her future crumbling on paper, at the neighbors she'd tormented now watching her downfall with satisfaction carved into their faces. This is illegal, she tried one more time. You can't. Sign it, I said quietly. Or Detective Morrison arrests you right now for embezzlement and fraud. Your choice, Veronica. But choose fast. Her hand reached for the pen. For the next 5 minutes, the only sound was pens scratching signatures, 4 people destroying their own futures in blue ink. When they finished, Jonathan collected the documents, handed copies to the detectives. You have 90 days, he said. Day 91. If you're still here, you're arrested. If payment isn't made, you're arrested. If you contact any resident of Willow Creek for any reason, you're arrested. Do you understand? 4 heads nodded. Then get out, Jonathan said, and don't come back. They walked toward the door. A walk of shame past 50 witnesses, past the families they'd destroyed, past the woman they'd laughed at. Veronica stopped at the doorway, turned back, looked at me one last time. I waved. Small. Sweet. The way you wave at someone leaving for a trip they'll never return from. The door closed behind them. The room erupted in cheers. The next morning, I chaired my first official HOA meeting. 53 residents packed the community center. People brought coffee, donuts, children, hope. I stood at the front, same cardigan, same cane, different everything else. First order of business, I said, all existing fines are canceled, every single one. If you were cited, fined, or threatened under the previous administration, consider it erased. Applause. Someone shouted, "Thank God." Second, the ridiculous rules are dissolved. Plant what you want, park what you want, decorate how you want. We're adults living in our own homes, start acting like it. More applause. Third, new dues are $40 per month, used for actual maintenance, actual improvements, actual community. Jonathan Hale will serve as professional HOA manager at a reasonable salary. Everything will be transparent, every penny accounted for. I looked around the room, at faces that hadn't smiled in years. We're going to have a community garden, movie nights on the lawn, a Christmas lights contest with a $500 prize. We're going to remember what it means to be neighbors. Maria Garcia raised her hand. Mrs. Harper, why didn't you tell us? All those months, all that time, why did you wait? I thought about that, about sitting in meetings, taking notes, about watching them suffer, about loading the gun. Because justice takes time, I said finally, and I wanted to do it right. Wanted to make sure they couldn't come back, couldn't hurt anyone else. Sometimes the quiet ones aren't quiet because they're weak. Sometimes they're quiet because they're loading the gun. Carlos Garcia finished. He'd heard me say it before, in a Denny's booth, when he signed his proxy. Exactly. That afternoon, I hired painters. They covered my butter yellow house with sage green, purple shutters. Colors Tom never chose but would have loved because they made me happy. I added 12 more gnomes to the yard, named them after characters from Tom's favorite movies. They stood in a semicircle around Huey, Dewey, and Louie like a garden defense squad. Neighbors walked by, waved, smiled. Some stopped to help position gnomes. Mrs. Chen came back, moved in with the new tenants at her old house, planted vegetables in the front garden. Nobody said a word. The Patels visited, brought their kids, set up Diwali lights in November. The whole street looked like a festival. It looked like home. Veronica listed her McMansion in February 2025. Market value, $687,000. She sold for $375,000, a $312,000 loss. Moved to a condo in Phoenix where the HOA was more reasonable. Brenda and Susan tried to fight the settlement in court. Jonathan buried them in motions and discovery. They settled for an additional $187,000 out of pocket and moved to Alabama where their sister lived. Mark and Veronica divorced 6 months later. Custody battle over the dog. She won. He got the debt. Meanwhile, Willow Creek transformed. Old neighbors moved back. The Garcias bought their house outright from Harper Quiet Holdings. I sold it to them for exactly what I'd paid. The Richardsons came home. The Chens returned. Property values actually rose. Turns out people want to live in neighborhoods where they're not terrorized. My CRV finally died in August. Transmission gave out at 203,000 miles. I'd driven it past its reasonable lifespan out of spite, proving Veronica's 5-year rule was always stupid. I replaced it with a butter yellow Tesla Model Y, parked it in my driveway, every single night, where everyone could see it. The HOA account, now properly managed, showed a surplus within 6 months. We built a playground, resurfaced the pool, planted trees. Jonathan ran meetings like a CEO. Professional, transparent, fair. And every Tuesday evening, I sat on my porch swing and watched my neighborhood live again. The best evenings are twilight ones. That time when the sun's going down and the streetlights are just coming on and you can hear kids playing and smell somebody's dinner cooking and everything feels like maybe the world isn't completely broken. I sit on my porch swing with sweet tea, Tom's recipe, extra lemon, just a touch of mint from the garden, and I watch Willow Creek be what it always should have been. Neighbors bringing me cookies now. Oatmeal raisin. Every Tuesday, someone new shows up with a plate, saying thank you, saying they didn't believe change was possible. I eat every single one. Sometimes I think about Tom, wonder what he'd say about all this, about me spending our entire fortune to buy a neighborhood, about turning into the kind of person who orchestrates elaborate revenge schemes. I think he'd laugh, that deep belly laugh he used to do when something caught him completely off guard. Then he'd pull me close and say what he always said, "Best revenge is living well, Evie." And I'd tell him what I learned. I just took it one step further, Tom. Living well wasn't enough. I had to live better, on their street, in their houses, with their rules turned inside out and their cruelty turned back on them. I'm living better than Veronica ever dreamed possible. Every day, someone stops by to thank me, to tell me their story, to explain what it means to have their home back, their dignity back, their neighborhood back. Last week, little Sofia Garcia, the one who was 4 when they almost lost everything, brought me a drawing, her family's house, with a figure labeled Mrs. Harper, standing in the front yard surrounded by gnomes. "You're a superhero," she said. "No, honey, I'm just someone who got tired of bullies. That's what superheroes are," she said seriously. Maybe she's right. So if you're watching this and you've got an HOA horror story, drop it in the comments. Tell me your city. Tell me what happened. I read every single one. And if you ever feel small, if you ever feel powerless, if you ever think the bullies have won, remember this. They laughed when the little old lady walked into the meeting. They stopped laughing when the new president walked in behind her. Because sometimes the quiet ones aren't quiet because they're weak. Sometimes they're quiet because they're loading the gun. Hit that subscribe button. Ring the bell. And never, ever underestimate a widow with Wi-Fi and a Vanguard account. Tom and I built something that couldn't be stolen. Turns out, we built a weapon too. I just had to learn how to use it. See you in the next one, friends. And remember, patience isn't passive. Sometimes it's the sharpest blade you've got.